Hello and welcome back to another episode of the One Report here on this channel. Thank you for supporting this series. I really do appreciate it. I don't know what other video I'm going to be putting out this week at the moment. I was planning on doing, um, for what we did after UFC 307 and doing a video about the performance that impressed me the most. But if you watch UFC 307, then you'll probably know what performances impressed me the most. There wasn't really a fighter that I think, particularly emerged with a statement performance other than, the big fights or people that are already contenders and stuff like that. I mean, Alex Pereira, what a performance. This episode is going to be a little bit low energy. I am struggling to recover after the UFC on Saturday night. I don't know why, because I'm pretty accustomed to staying up until the early hours of the morning to watch these UFC events and cover them and stuff. But yeah, it really took it out of me, this one. I think it was the split decisions, and the fact that Stephen Thompson and Jose Aldo lost. Just it's taking me an extra couple of days, I guess. But we are here as always to talk about One Championship news. No iced coffee. This episode is getting a little bit colder here in the UK, so I've got a cup of tea instead. You probably can't see that very well, but it is a Pennywise the Clown mug because it is well and truly underway with spooky season. I'm a big horror fan, if you couldn't tell from some of the stuff in this backdrop. So that's what we're doing. So yeah, no idea what the other video coming out on this this channel this week. I guess we'll wait and see if some big news drops, but stay tuned for that. I should also say I spoke, I think, on a previous episode about how I had some One Championship stuff that I was working on. That is in the latest digital issue of Fighters Only, which you can check out on the app or their website. It is a subscription that you have to sign up for. But I spoke with Christian Lee ahead of his return at 169, which I assume is still happening at Lumpinee Stadium. Of course, that card was moved from Atlanta to Lumpinee. There is a video on this channel already about that. And we know as well that they're going to be doing 2 events in the US next year that have been announced. I believe it was March and December. So a little bit of a step back from the 4 events that were originally being I think looked at for 2025, but I think considering what's happened with 1169 and this Atlanta card not happening, so we're only getting the 1 US show this year, going to 2 next year, I think is maybe not a bad idea. And we'll see, I guess we'll talk about those more when we have some more details on those. There wasn't a ton to talk about outside of One Fight Night 25. I mean, there was with that stuff, right? And, we had some stuff here and there, but we're going to mostly talk about One Fight Night 25 that happened on Friday night at Lumpinee Stadium. The only other thing, I mean, we'll get into the new weigh-ins for One Championship. I'm not going to talk about that loads because I think we'll find out. It's still super confusing, and I think we'll find out more, as we cover more of these events on this series. We'll kind of chat about how that is being implemented, because the first use of it was quite strange and confusing. The only other thing I think is maybe Chingiz Alazov. He showed up at the K1 event this past weekend. It's kind of been teased a little bit that maybe that's where he's going to be going. And, if you see him at the event, you're like, oh my God, are they going to announce Chingiz here? And he didn't announce that he's going to be fighting at K1 or anything. He was there to support his teammate. But he still showed up, and I saw a few people kind of posting their thoughts and feelings about that. I'm sure people who watched the K1 event and will be able to provide a little bit more context for that might be a better place to find out some more about that. If you are interested, off the top of my head, go check out Tim Wheaton's Kick Weekly when that is up. I'm sure he'll have a pretty in-depth breakdown of that K1 event. I know they did a preview of that as well, so go check out my man Tim Wheaton, and he'll have you covered on all things K1 kickboxing, I am sure. But let's get to One Fight Night 21. I'll have a sip of my tea first, because otherwise I will definitely forget to drink it. I am one of those people. I'm really bad at making myself a cup of tea and then forgetting to drink it. If someone else makes it, that's a different story, because that's frankly rude. If you're not from the UK, then maybe that won't mean anything to you, but maybe it does. I don't know. Let's pull this card up on screen here. One Fight Night 25 at Lumpinee Stadium, October 4th, which was, of course, headlined by the One Lightweight Kickboxing World Championship rematch between Alexei Nicholas and Regian Eersel. Nicholas was able to get the win the first time these guys met. big of a, I was going to say bit of an upset, pretty big upset, I would say. Nicholas beating Eersel for this title, because Alexei had only fought once in one championship, and I don't think people were looking at that performance and going, "Whoa, this guy could be a world champion." And then his performance against Regian Eersel was very good. He started the fight very well. Did a lot of damage with leg kicks, was able to drop Regian in the second round, and that ended up being decisive, because it went 5 rounds and it would have been scored a draw. There are no draws in one championship, so the knockdown gave Alexei Nicholas the win. So they ran it back at One Fight Night 25, where Regian Eersel reclaimed the title with a fantastic performance. Regian Eersel is a guy that I don't think maybe gets the credit he deserves. In one championship, he is such a reliable headliner. And whilst he doesn't, his fights aren't always, he does go to a lot of decisions. He has got finishes as well. I'm not saying that he isn't a fighter that goes for the finish. He certainly does. You can expect 5-round title fights, especially when he's fighting, very good level opposition. You're going to get decisions. That just happens. I'm not saying, he's a boring fighter by any means, but his fights are always really interesting to me, even the ones that do go to decisions and things like that. I really enjoyed watching this fight. I really enjoyed the first fight with Alexei Nicholas too. But I was really just stunned by the performance from Regian Eersel in this fight. The adaptation, the evolution that he made in between the first fight and the second fight was clear as day, I think. For a start, the leg kicks, that was something that he said was kind of the defining characteristic in their first fight. That was the thing that caused him the most issue. He didn't have any problem with that the second time around. He was able to land some leg kicks of his own. He did a very good job of checking the leg kicks that Nicholas did land, but most importantly, he didn't give Alexei Nicholas the time to set them up, because he put Alexei on the back foot from the very start. It was almost, he flipped the script entirely. Alexei started the first fight very well. Regian started this fight very well, was great in those first 2 rounds. I think he kind of took the third round, if I'm remembering it correctly, off, and kind of, I'm not saying that he was just running on his back foot or anything like that, but definitely Alexei's round, the third round, and then he came on strong again, probably in the fourth and fifth. I think the third round, some of the judges gave to Alexei. I think some of them gave him the fourth as well, off the top of my head. I don't have the scorecards up, but you can find that information out if you do want to check the scorecards out for yourself. But I think Regian ended up winning 4 rounds on a couple of scorecards and 3 rounds on one, if my memory serves me correctly. But yeah, a great performance from Regian. I thought, I was interested to see whether they were going to speak about doing a trilogy. I don't think it's like, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it if they end up going in that direction. I don't think they will, because Regian, of course, is a 2-sport world champion. He is also the lightweight Muay Thai world champion. I think he should probably defend that belt now. That was a combination of now and next, if you're wondering. It was like nout, which is, he is going to defend the belt. Whatever. I'm tired, like I said. So yeah, if they did a trilogy fight, I'd be interested to see how Alexei adapts, because clearly I think he wasn't aggressive enough early on, and he needed to be. And Regian was kind of throwing a lot out there. And so I think there was opportunities for Alexei to counter, but he almost just didn't really seem to have any time to settle into the fight and start to, work his game plan and stuff. It just seemed like Regian just, really put him on the back foot from the off. Regian's jab in particular, like later on in the fight, it seemed like any time Alexei was looking to make a read or throw a leg kick or throw a big counter hook or something, Regian was just constantly jabbing him. And it was almost like he needed, 15, 20 seconds or 30 seconds to really settle and go, okay, this is what Regian's trying to do. I'm going to counter him with this. But every time Regian hit him with that jab, that timer reset back to 0 constantly. And he just kept doing it. And it worked brilliantly for him. And he reclaimed the one lightweight title. And then spoke about how he wants to probably defend the Muay Thai title next. And of course, in the co-main event, you probably have the next challenger for that belt, I would imagine, because Yousef Asic, I believe it is, or I remember them saying it on commentary and I've forgotten how they said it already. Asuk? I apologize. Let's call him Yousef. I just realized I'm completely blocking him, aren't I? let's switch me over to the other side there, so you can see the victor of the co-main event, Yousef, who won his one championship debut. He's done a decent job on the European scene, won a few titles and things like that. Comes into one straight into a contest with Stinsumut and gets the win. A little bit of a strange fight. I thought Sintimut would be a little bit more, would make an impression earlier on, because you saw in his last fight with Dmitry Menshikov, he looked great in those first 2 rounds and looked well on his way to winning. And then Menshikov pulls off that 3rd round knockout to get the win. And maybe there is something there with Sintimut being a little bit more reserved early on, but he just couldn't really get to Yousef in those first 2 rounds, which I think is where this fight was won, because I would say Sintimut probably got the better of the 3rd round. He did land some good shots. Yousef really slowed down in that 3rd round, which will be an interesting thing to note ahead of a fight with Regian Eersel, who, whilst he maybe did take a little bit of time off in that 5-rounder with Alexei, he came back strong late on in the fight again. So that's going to be a tough thing for Asic, because Nicholas definitely slowed in the fight with Regian. And if Regian can put that same pace on Yousef, then interesting to see how that goes. But I thought he looked good. Good kicks, good striking off of the back foot. And yeah, Sintimut just couldn't really make an impact in those first 2 rounds, really make an indent in the fight. I suppose whilst we're here, we should talk about the fights that were cancelled, because the original co-main event was Kontorny versus was it Yusupov? And that fight didn't end up happening. These new weigh-ins and stuff are confusing. Like I said, we'll chat about this more as we go through some of these cards and we see it implemented more, because some fights, you now have to weigh in and stuff in the first hour, and then you have more time if you miss it. But if you miss it in that first hour, then you still lose a percentage of your purse, but it goes to charity. I think that, like I said, as we see this implemented more, it will make more sense, because this really confused me, because we then had 3 fights that were like, oh, okay, these fights are cancelled. That would be Kontorny versus Yusupov, which did get cancelled. Ayaka Miura versus Jihin Raduan, which did get cancelled. And then Amy Perney versus Shia Cohen was cancelled and then put back on. So I just don't really know what's going on here. Maybe there's more clarification out there as to why. I'm sure someone will have asked. I don't know if Chat3 was in attendance, but I'm sure someone will have asked a one official. I'm sure my good friend Mr. Nick Atkin will know more about this. And so stay tuned for that, I suppose. But like I said, I think this is just a thing that we'll grow to learn more about over time, because it did seem like there was a lot of rules to take in all at once, and then new rules being added that we didn't know about, because I don't know what the reasoning for Amy versus Shia's fight being put back on after initially being cancelled. I don't know. But like I said, we'll find out. It was a shame to lose some of those fights. You know, we've got these new rules, and then you get one of these cards that gets pretty drastically hit by weight misses and hydration test failures. Performance of the night bonus winner, John Lineker in Muay Thai, 2nd knockout in the bantamweight Muay Thai division for him, back-to-back knockout wins. He stopped Alexei Baloche with 3 knockdowns in the first round, which kind of doesn't do justice to that final shot that he lands, because you think, okay, well, he dropped him 3 times. That means it was the end of the fight. It could have been, if that 3rd knockdown was the first knockdown, he wouldn't have needed 2 more, because my God, he shut the lights out on Baloche. John Lineker in Muay Thai is super fun. That's, like I said, 2 finishes for him now. He, of course, fought Ace of 10 Power 1168, so 2 finishes in the space of about a month, which that's one of the great things about John Lineker being in Muay Thai. It means you get to see him fight more often, and he doesn't really seem to be taking any damage in these fights. As I said in the preview of this card, I don't think John Lineker is going to have an issue in bantamweight Muay Thai until he's fighting the really top guys who are going to be a little bit better at keeping distance on him and catching him with strikes as he closes that distance, like you saw with Fabricio Andrade against John Lineker. You know, the other bantamweight contenders in that division just don't really have an answer for John Lineker when he's coming at you. They can try and get out the way, but they can't really deter him unless they can take him down, which of course, you know, the likes of Stephen Lohman weren't able to do. But Fabricio Andrade is a fantastic counter striker, great shot selection and great footwork too. So he was able to kind of tag Lineker as he came in and also circle out the way again. He was able to put Lineker on the back foot as well, earned his respect in that striking range. I just don't see, I think Fabricio, I know that maybe he didn't look brilliant in his kickboxing fight with Haggerty, but I think Wonder Boy is a phenomenal striker, especially in MMA. And I don't think anyone in this division is going to be able to do that to Lineker until he starts fighting the really top guys. That being said, I think just put him in with Rodtang. I think just do it. I've spoken about this fight before and how much I want to see it. Just do it. I think that would be so much fun. The problem is Rodtang is booked against Jacob Smith at the rebooked 1169 card at Lumpinee in November, and he already has a bout agreement signed with Takeru, which you would imagine could potentially be that US card in March. I would probably imagine it'll be Japan in like February or something like that. I think January probably seems a little bit too close, but you never know. One do love their double bookings, and Rodtang could come through the Jacob Smith rematch unscathed. I'm not too sure. You would imagine he'll win that fight, but will he come through unscathed? Jacob Smith's tough, so I would imagine that will go a fair few rounds, if not the distance. But either way, so you kind of, you know, I guess you can't do it right now. John Lineker might be waiting for a little while, but I am happy to watch John Lineker compete in Muay Thai. Like, frankly, he could have lost this fight, and I would still want to see him fight Rodtang. So I think do it anyway. Bokang Masinyane taking on Mansur Malachiev in the strawweight division. Malachiev got the win here. As kind of expected, these two guys, wrestling specialists, ended up being a kickboxing match. Malachiev was the one who tried to take it to the ground the most, didn't have a lot of success with his takedowns. And I thought Bokang was going to be able to win this fight on the feet. And I thought he looked good, but he wasn't able to do it consistently. In the end, Malachiev just was able to get the win. I think just by being a little bit cleaner. Bokang, because he's much more of a impressive athlete than Mansur in terms of, you know, his explosivity. Is that a word, explosivity? I believe it is. You know, he's an explosive guy, is Bokang. He has that kind of super athletic build for a strawweight, and he was looking for bigger shots, and Malachiev was basically able to win this just by sticking to his basics. You know, he landed quite a few jabs, fair few kicks. He did go for some fancy stuff, which I was like, okay, we haven't seen that from him before, some wheel kicks and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool to see. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't really set up and it didn't land. But yeah, he's got that in his arsenal now. That's something to keep an eye out for. I can't imagine he'll be using it against the likes of Jared Brooks or Passio, but we'll see. Big win for him, though. Probably is the next title contender. Brooks and Passio title unification has to be next. I think Malachiev could probably just sit out and wait for that. But I wouldn't be mad at seeing him versus like Gustavo Baloche or something like that. That could be interesting too. We were supposed to have Minowa versus Zakharov as well on this card. That fell off again, I guess. I don't even know what happened to that one. Johanna Stupinan versus Zacharia El Jamari, another performance of the night bonus winner. One of the bonuses went to John Lineker, the other went to Johanna Stupinan for very, very deserved reasons. You know, when this guy had his One Friday Fights debut and won it in like 30 seconds, you're like, okay, this guy's definitely interesting. We're going to push him here. He was on 1167 and 1168. That fight against Climaco at 1168, the first fight of the night, was an absolute banger. One of my favorite Muay Thai fights we have seen this year. And then he goes in and does it again against El Jamari. A crazy opening round, both guys hurting each other. And then pretty much the same as the Climaco fight, apart from he didn't get dropped. You know, Climaco was able to drop him a couple of times. So he didn't have to respond from that kind of adversity, but still some adversity. El Jamari definitely tagged him. But Stupinan is a fascinating guy to watch because he is a guy that tries to finish you with every single thing he throws. And as a result, he gets tagged a lot. The crazy thing is like when he actually backs off a little bit more and throws at range, that I think is where he's really good. You know, his kicks and his long range punches are so effective because he has such long limbs and he throws with such power. And the majority of the time, people are just left being defensive. They can't throw back when he's fighting at full range. But he loves to get into the thick of it. You get these wild exchanges, and you know, as was the case in the Clamaco fight, his power is just his aggression as well. I think you know other opponents, you know, they hurt him and they don't go 0 to 60 as quickly as he does. When he has you hurt, that is what he is going to do. And even if you catch him when he's trying to finish you, good chance he will still finish you. Yeah, super fun guy to watch. Always a fan, and I am excited to continue watching him do his thing in one championship. Because it's been a lot of fun. Amy Perney versus Shia Cohen, an upset here. Shia Cohen defeated Amy Perney, who I spoke to ahead of this fight. I expected that she would come through this one. And yeah, I thought Shia Cohen looked fantastic in this fight, honestly. So this fight was at a catch weight. Like I said, it wasn't happening, and then it was. Yeah, just a step ahead. For the majority of this fight, her boxing looked very good. I thought that Amy did a good job of coming back into it. In kind of the second round, but the third round I think probably went to Shia Cohen, and she looked really good. I'm excited to see what she does next, actually, because it was a good performance and obviously a huge win for her. And I don't remember seeing her like being this impressed. You know, she's got 3 wins now in one championship, 3 wins in a row. But yeah, I didn't see this one coming. So fair play to her. That was a phenomenal performance. And then the first 2 fights of the night, 2 decisions. Not loads to talk about here. I don't think. Rubitelio got the win over Tongpoon. That this performance was kind of I wouldn't say ruined, but tarnished a little bit by the third round. I thought Botelho looked good in the first 2, was doing a very good job of catching Tongpoon as he tried to close the distance, tried to enter the void, as Demetrius Johnson would say. And then the third round was just constantly clinching, like not even like a Mario Bautista, Jose Aldo level, like worse than that in terms of just like Botelho wasn't trying to fight in that third round. And that kind of tarnished it a bit. I think up to that point, the first 2 rounds I was pretty impressed by him, and then that third round I was kind of left with a bad taste in my mouth. But it is an important win for him. That would have been tough if he had lost to Tom Poon, and if he had been stopped in that third round, I would have been saying, "What an idiot!" Well, I wouldn't have gone that far. I wouldn't be calling Rubitelio an idiot. He certainly isn't an idiot. He certainly is a very talented martial artist and striker. But I would have been like, "What an upset from Tom Poon!" Rubitelio was ahead, and he couldn't contain Tongpoon in that third round in order to just coast to the win. So, you know, this is combat sports. This is what happens. Damned if you do and damned if you don't, I suppose, to some extent. Opening fight of the night went the way of Daniel Williams, catchweight MMA. He defeated Bama Doji. Good fight. Not loads to say. Doji lost a striking contest against a guy that has fought some of the best strikers in the world. So there's not loads to say about that. I thought Doji was like competitive at least and was game, but Daniel Williams just landed the more accurate strikes, the more damaging strikes at a more consistent level than Doji did, despite the fact I thought he looked all right in this fight. But you would imagine, you know, if you're matched to fight Daniel Williams, even if you are confident that you can strike with him, you at least have a plan B of like, maybe I can clinch with him or try and take him to the ground. And Doji never really tried to switch that up into a plan B. So it was a close fight. Like, I'm not saying it was one-sided, but it was a close fight that I never really thought Daniel Williams was going to lose unless Doji was able to catch him with some crazy strike right at the end. But that is it for the results from One Fight Night 25. Let me know what you guys thought What was your favorite performance of the night? Favorite fight of the night? I feel like favorite fight was a Stupinan, and favorite performance was John Lineker. Although, like I said, I really enjoyed that main event. I thought Regian Eersel looked phenomenal, and the whole time I was just like, "This guy is so good." Because yeah, he looked great. I thought that will just about do it. I think for this episode of the One Report. Like I said, when we get these cards and stuff, there's not loads to chat about. We'll go through the fights as always, but if there is other things that you guys want to see me cover on these episodes, then let me know. We haven't really had any big fight announcements or anything like that. We did have obviously the big 1169 news, but I covered that in a separate video. I thought that was important to get out on this channel ASAP rather than waiting for today. But as I said at the start, I appreciate your support on these videos. I like doing this kind of podcast style thing where it's a little bit more low key, a little bit more long form content, I suppose. Even if it is just like 25 minutes or something on a Monday morning. But thank you for joining me as always for the One Report. I don't know what the video on this channel is going to be, as I said, so stay tuned for that, I guess. But until then, thank you for checking out the video. I'll see you very soon. Peace.